have this here, it would just start attacking via the files inside. So we're calling out specifically, and then here we're saying we're using a word list. Here's the word list we're using. So I'm gonna go ahead and run that, hit enter. Okay, and you can see that we have found password is equal to Java 101. So now if we go to unzip, save.zip, type in Java 101, hit enter. Okay, we ls, they should be here now. So let's cat out the todo.txt. It says, figure out how to install the main website properly. The config file seems correct. Update development website. Keep coding in Java because it's awesome. And then we get a signature from JP. We don't know who JP is, but we do get an ID RSA file. So that ID RSA file can be used in order to connect via SSH. Now, we don't know who the user is. There's a chance that the user might be JP, so we can do something like SSH-I. I'm not sure if the permission settings here are going to be correct in this ID RSA file. We'll see here in a quick second. And then we come in here and we say something like JP at 192.168.138.137. Cross your fingers, type yes. It asks for his password. We don't know a password. So we're not even sure if that's working. We're not sure. It didn't even look like it took the ID RSA. So we're not sure if this guy's even a user. So let's keep this information in our back pocket for now. We have this, we're gonna clear screen. We have this ID RSA file, and we have some information hopefully sitting here waiting for us. So on the port 80 side, we have a public 301, we have a source 301, we have an app 301, vendor extensions. Okay, so maybe we come in here and we take a look at that. Also on this side, we have a dev directory. So if we go in here and we just /dev, we are brought to this bolt wire application, which is cool. On here, we have a few different directories that came back. Let's see. We have public source app, so we can kind of go through those manually. Just public, see what's there. Nothing's there. Bolt user first, it says. Source site. We get a customization extension PHP. I don't know if there's anything in there. You could open that. Doesn't look like it's going to go anywhere. Next, we go to app. Kind of come through here, and this is where we find a directory. And I think I said in one of the past videos that it's kind of realistic. I have seen this actually on a pen test before, where you come across a directory, and this directory listing can be a finding. One time I literally came in here and the first thing sitting at the top of the directory was SQL database with all the passwords and information in here. So looks like there's a Bolt database in here, though the size is 0. I clicked through here earlier, trying to click around, see if I could find anything. Cache is interesting, but config would probably be more interesting, especially a config.yaml file. So I went ahead and just downloaded that, and then I have it stored here. I'm going to go ahead and just open that up, and I encourage you to do the same. Open with mousepad, open with whatever you like. Here you can see that it says, hey, the username's Bolt and the password is I love Java. So I'm going to copy this. We don't know where this works, if this pays off for anything anywhere, but we're going to save this information kind of in our back pocket. So I'm going to do a new tab in here and just paste that because that's some information that we got. So the other side of things is that we also have a Bolt wire application. And we can come in here and look around. It looks like there's a registration page. Might be able to register like hacker and password hacker. Come in here. And it doesn't look like it's letting us do anything else. So we're clicking around. We got some search features. It doesn't look like it's doing anything. Can print some information on the site. So it's best to click around, see if there's anything of interest in here, but I'm not seeing anything at this point in time of interest. So as of right now, I'm curious as to this Bolt wire, if there's anything, any vulnerabilities that exist. So we can go out to Google. Actually, I have Google open right here, and we can just say like Bolt wire exploit. and see what comes up. Now there's one from 2020. There's one from 2012. I'm going to use the more recent one, this local file inclusion. We could also search this on our Kali machine, by the way. We can go in and just do like a, let's see, we can do a search exploit and just do bolt wire and see what comes back. And you can see that all that shows up are multiple cross-site scripting, which cross-site scripting is not going to have any effect for us. Like putting cross-site scripting here isn't going to do anything on a box like this unless they are from a CTF standpoint, unless there's somebody mimicking a user going in and actually navigating the website. There's no use for even attacking cross-site scripting. That's not to say that this is not a great vulnerability and this is something that you would see in the real world. You absolutely do. But we attack real users with this. That's part of it, because you store cross-site scripting or you store JavaScript and you attack users with that. We're not attacking any users. We're just attacking this box at this time. So what we're going to do then is probably really focus on this local file inclusion. So let's take a look at it and open this up. We'll talk about local file inclusion, what that is, what it might be. So really quickly, local file inclusion allows us to potentially expose files that are running on a server. And this can lead to information disclosure, as you're going to see here, remote code execution, cross-site scripting. There's a lot of things that it can do. So basically what's happening is it is accepting this path here as input. It's a coding error on the development side. So we're able to input this, and what we're doing, .. // imagine you're in a Linux machine. We're literally just saying, hey, I want to go back as far as possible to a base directory, and then etc password. Okay. So this could be as many directories as needed. You could throw in 10 of these and it might work. And then we're trying to get the etc password because this will allow us to see who's on the machine running. Now, if this is running as a root user, then guess what? We can run this as etc shadow and go grab the hash, and maybe we have even more sensitive information. But this attack by itself is pretty cool and is it's not seen in the wild as much, but it is definitely out there. So it's something we test for on every web application. So what we're going to do here is we're looking for local files. Remember, this is local file inclusion. So no remote files, which is a different type of attack. LFI here, not RFI. So it looks like we're using action, search, action, and then this attack frame here. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy this. I'll show you why. Because I was looking at the application and you can see that here's the index.php, p equals welcome. In here, it's very similar, p equals action.search. So this is on the search feature, it looks like it's happening, or on the action parameter. So we're going to go ahead and paste that in here. Make sure you've created an account, by the way. If you do not have an account created for this, then it is not going to work. I don't know if that says that in here, that you need to be authenticated or not. Oh, it does. Being authenticated. So if you're not authenticated, it will not work. So you can come in here, just come over here and paste, cross your fingers, and it works. So one thing I want to try real quick is like etc shadow. Nothing. It was worth a shot. You never know. So we're not running as a user that can read the etc shadow file. So in this instance, we're just looking at a user that can read the etc password. That's okay. We're not a high level user here. And what we can do is we scroll down to the bottom. We always know root's at the top. Scroll down to the bottom to see who your users might be. And out of anything that stands out in here, there's only one user, and that is our friend JP, who looks like his name is Jean-Paul. So I think we have a user here. So this explains why the JP didn't work for us before when we tried logging in on the machine, because John Paul was the user that we had, and he wasn't on that machine. So we were looking for John Paul. So now we found a little bit more information, and we can tie this all together, hopefully, and actually exploit this machine. So I'm going to go back. Where was the mount that I had? I'm going to go back in here and try SSHing again with this file and do a Jean Paul. And it's asking for a password key phrase. Okay, so there are two options that we can do here. Option number one is you are capable of brute forcing this key ID RSA. John the Ripper can take this and push it through. The issue is if the password doesn't show up in your word list, or the password is too strong, for example, then it's not going to work. We also have some information that we found before that might work out for us. We already know that John Paul, or JP, said in his to-do that he is a lover of what? Java. And he comes in here and we have a password saying, I love Java. Now, my hunch is this probably doesn't show up in RockU, and we can do a quick check on that actually. So let's just do a cat user share word list RockU like this, and you can just watch, and then we're just going to grep on this password. It doesn't show up. Like where if you wanted to grep on like pasta, you could see all the different times pasta shows up in this word list. So that if we were to run RockU against this with the word list, it wouldn't have worked. Now if we would have had a really good word list, possibly it shows up, but we already know a little bit about him. We're going to go ahead and try pasting that in, and of course it works. Jean-Paul really loves Java. So Jean-Paul at dev has logged in, and now we are the low-level user. So we'll do a quick ls, print working directory. We're in his home folder. There's nothing here. Some things that I like to do immediately. History check. Okay, it looks like somebody cleared out the history. Somebody ran a sudo-l in here, exited. Sudo-l is the second check that I like to do, or even first check that I like to do, because it tells us what we can run as sudo without a password. Okay, so sudo, remember, is what we can run as elevated privileges. So in this instance, we can run the zip feature with no password. So we can literally run sudo zip and it should work. Okay, so it's not requiring a password. Awesome. Issue here. How can we take sudo zip and abuse that feature for us to be able to escalate into root? That is the question. If we have a no password, which this comes up a lot in boxes like this, like CTF style boxes, if we have a no password, how can we do this? So we need to go take a look at that. We come over here. I got a site for you. Go out to the Google machine. Okay, and you're going to type in GTFO bin, just like that. It's really GTFO bins, but we took what showed up first. Okay, GTFO bins. Great website. Let's make it bigger. Great website. You come in here. You can look for the different type of escalations that you want. We have a sudo escalation. Okay, sudo escalation. And we come in here, we say, okay, we've got sudo, and then we're looking for zip. We can type in zip in the search bar, but we also have zip right here. So if we want to do a sudo zip, we go into zip, look for sudo, and it says, here's how you use sudo as a zip in order to get root privileges. Okay. And so it says in here, if the binary is allowed to run as a super user by sudo, it does not drop the elevated privileges and may be used to access the file system, escalate, or maintain privileged access. It's telling us what it's doing. All we have to do here is copy this, come over, paste this, okay, come back, copy this. This should drop us into a shell. Let's see what happens. All right, we have been dropped into a shell here. As sudo, we dropped into a shell. So with that, if we type in ID, we are now root. Why? Because sudo runs elevated. We said, okay, as elevated user, we want to go ahead and drop into a shell here. We did this. Now we can go cd to root, ls, cat out our flag. Congrats on rooting this box. And that's it. So hopefully that was informative for you. This was a little bit on the, I would say, easier side of the machines. We're trying to go in order of difficulty. This one is something that you get a few different options for you. It shows you how to mount. It shows you how to enumerate multiple web directories and really tie a bunch of information together, which is nice. And then you get to see a classic sudo no password escalation, this time using zip. but if you see in the GTFO bins, when we went back and just highlighted sudo, there are a lot of escalations if sudo privileges are enabled in order to get into to go from low level to root. So it's quite fun and quite common, by the way. So that's it for this video. I will go ahead and see you in the next one. On to the next machine, which is Butler. Now, Butler was created by Joe Helly, aka the mayor. Thank you so much, Joe, for creating this machine for us. And this machine is going to be a Windows-based machine that is going to allow us to explore privilege escalation, since when we first used Blue went right to root for us. So this one's going to give us some experience with privilege escalation. Now, I have this accounts.txt file open just to show you that the administrator password for this one's a little bit different than the other Windows machine. This file is included in your download. So if you downloaded this, you've installed it, you should have found the accounts. That way you can go and get the IP address that was pulled from this machine. So with that out of the way, I went ahead and ran nmap again, similar process. Now here we have 7680 open and 8080 open. I'm going to go ahead and you can ignore that for now. I'm going to go ahead and go out to the website 168.138.138. And we're going to see if it would help if I put 8080 on the end of it. We're going to see what's there. Okay. All that's here is a login page for Jenkins. So we don't have much here yet. There are a few things that we can do here. We can try to do some brute forcing. We can look for directory busting. We could try to do a view page source real quick and see if there's any information in here that might indicate what version we're running on, and see if there's anything in here that we can get maybe an exploit off of. And really, there's not going to be much. We could go to Google and do a quick Jenkins exploit and see if we can find any sort of Jenkins exploits. And there's this here about attacking Jenkins. There's one here about attacking Jenkins. This one has remote code execution. And we can kind of click through these and see what we're looking at for this. So it looks like 2015 Jenkins has some deserialization attacks. 2018 had authentication bypassing. And it looks like, let's see, we've got check script, remote code execution. There's a lot of different, looks like, attacks in here. There's some password spraying that you could do against this, which we'll talk about here in a minute. Dumping secrets, Groovy scripts, reverse shells with Groovy. Okay, so there's quite a bit in here. This one is a little bit, let's see if it's the same or not. This is saying, hey, here's how you get code execution. There's 3 ways to get code execution, which ideally we want code execution. We could do some brute forcing here, but I'm going to show you a way to do brute forcing without having to do this. We can do some remote code execution, and it shows, hey, there's a few different ways to do it. In this instance, we're going to need authentication. There's no way around this. For using Jenkins, we need authentication to get in here. So it's pretty neat. They show you a few different ways to get this exploit, and everything's pointing back to Groovy, or it looks like there's a PowerShell way of doing it, which is neat. This article here tells you, hey, when you're logged in, you can log in, and it shows you how to attack this. This looks a little bit older. So there are ways around this, and we can do some research into this to see, okay, how do we exploit Jenkins? All signs so far are really pointing to authenticated attacks. There are some here that are older that looks like they're bypassing authentication. Just to save time and skip ahead, we're going to go ahead and avoid those, though it's not out of the realm of possibility that you explore those, go down these rabbit holes, check it out, see if there's any sort of attack that you can exploit here. So our main focus is, how do we log into this application? We haven't found any sort of version information, which is unfortunate. The other thing that we can do is we can go to Google and we could say Jenkins default password. And it says the default password is admin password, which is what's created the very, very first time you log in. I think it asks you to change it once you log in, though I am not 100% confident on that. And we can come in here and try admin password. And we're going to see that doesn't work. Unfortunately, we don't have default credentials here. So we have the possibility of doing some brute force directory busting on this. Maybe there's a configuration file or something sitting on the back end that we can get access to. I'm going to tell you, just to save time, that is not the case. Though if you're thinking through that methodology or that mindset, that's fine. I think that's okay. The other option is this port here, this 7680. We could try connecting to this. You can use Netcat, you can use Telnet. There's options here where you can try, for example, you could try telnetting, but you could do apt install telnet because it doesn't come by default anymore. And then you would just go telnet, IP address 138.138, and then that port number, which would be 7680. And you could see what's listening on there. This is a odd port. It's trying it, it's not connecting. It's one of those weird ones that you don't really see that often. And I'm telling you from my experience, I don't see that often. You can go out and Google, hey, what does this port do? You could also go and say, hey, I know this port's open, so I'm gonna go ahead and just try 7680 here. That's gonna stall out. It's not a web address either. So we're running out of options on how to actually connect to that. That could be a false positive that it came back on as well. We're not sure because we're not getting any actual connection into that machine. So with that being said, we need to brute force Jenkins. Now you saw Metasploit had a module. Somebody showed that in one of these. We're going to do it the burp suite method because that's my favorite go-to. And I'll show you the burp suite method. If you want to play around with some of these other methods, like that's shown in here. Sorry, I'll make this bigger, but that's shown in here. Feel free to go use this in Metasploit and see if you can brute force passwords, usernames, etc. But from here, what we're going to do is we're going to use burp suite. So I'm going to use a tool called Foxy Proxy. Since we're in 2021, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to install this just to get this up and running. If you just type in Foxy Proxy, literally go the first link you get with standard, go in here, hit install. Mine's already installed, so it's going to ask me to remove it. All you got to do is install it. It should show up right here in the corner. Little fox, okay? You go to options for your first time setting it up. And in here, all you want to do is hit add. And then I'm going to cancel this. Let's edit this so you can see what my settings are. I just named it burp 127.0.0.1, our local host, and our port of 8080. What this does is we use burp suite once in the course, and we had to go in and change our settings and our preferences and come in here. This just does it for us automatically with like the flip of a switch. So when we open up burp suite, let's go ahead and do that. You can just type in burp up at the top and open up burp suite. So we're going to use this proxy, right? We're going to proxy through this. I'm going to cancel any requests for updates. We're just going to use what's in here. This is 2021 2.1, which is new enough for me. I've made my font size really big, so yours might look a little bit different. This is just for video recording purposes. But in here, we have a proxy. Okay, this is what we're going to be listening on. We're intercepting some traffic. We showed this a little bit in the last, the enumeration section. But here you can see 127.0.0.1.80.80 is where the traffic is flowing through. And I'm going to go ahead and intercept traffic. So like I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say admin password on this attempt, which I know is not going to work. But we have the traffic now intercepted, hopefully in our burp suite. Maybe if I actually turned on this would work. Let's try admin password. Hit enter. Okay, now it comes up. So you can see the request comes through in this inspector. We're getting a post request. We're trying to pass this password through admin password sign in form. Okay. What I'm going to do is we can send this to repeater. I'll send it to repeater first. Then I'm going to send this to intruder. So just right click. You can do Control R or Control I. Both work. Control R to send to repeater. Control I to send to intruder. But in this instance, we can just push this request, hit send. And this will just say, hey, 302 found. You can follow the redirection. It's going to say 401 unauthorized. All right, so that's one thing. We could see in here that the set cookie comes remember me equals, and there's nothing in here. So that could be something to look forward to a little bit later. But what we want to do is we want to come in and we could technically brute force. We could be like password password 1, go send that one, and keep coming through until we can follow the redirection, and find an actual login. Doing this with repeater will take forever. Good thing is we have something called intruder. So if you come in here and you go into the positions tab right here, go ahead and hit clear. What we're going to do is set a couple of positions. We're going to come in here and we're going to say, okay, admin, I see you. I'm going to go ahead and say add. Double click on admin, hit add. Double click on password, hit add. We are basically setting up our parameters or our variables that we're going to use. So we're going to perform an attack where we give usernames and we give passwords, and it's going to try those in combination. So really, when we use multiple facets here, we're either going to be using Pitchfork or Cluster Bomb. So Pitchfork is great for what is credential stuffing, which we're going to be trying, hey, I know this user has this password. So we'll say admin has the password of password, and we may have found that in a breach. Okay, so we'll try admin to password, and then we'll try next user with that password. So it's 1-to-1. Now, Cluster Bomb is, I'm going to try every single user with every single password in the list. So if I've got 5 users and 10 different passwords, that's going to be 50 different attempts, because it's going to try user 1 with all 10 passwords, user 2 with all 10 passwords, and so forth. So we're going to use a cluster bomb attack because we have no idea what the username or the password is. Now, in order to save time, I'm going to just type in a few different payloads here. Realistically, we would guess some different usernames that would go in here. Like, for example, admin, administrator, Jenkins. Okay, if we knew like an IT person or somebody who might be running this, we might put in their name. But in this instance, we might just want to run with these 3. And then on a bad password list, we might just go copy like the worst 100 passwords or worst 500 passwords and then just hit paste and paste it in here. In this instance, I'm going to type out some bad passwords. So maybe password, Jenkins,